Perfect. Thanks, so nice to see so many of you join the session today. Just really a little bit about me. So my name's Nick Little, and I have to say that slowly because I keep saying my maiden name so many times, and I said it again last week in a meeting, so Nick Little. My current role is Head of Recruitment, and I work for Voyage Healthcare, and I've been there about 2 years now. So I've been a Head of Recruitment for about 12 years now, in various organisations, from retail to the care industry, and I've worked with employee databases from about 6,000 to 15,000 employees, where volume recruitment has really been the heart of what we've had to try and achieve. And I'd say probably about over that time span, we've recruited about 500 people a month or thereabouts, so big challenge. And it comes with lots of challenges, as I'm sure all of you who are in the same space will understand that. And they're things from not having enough starters, which is normally the number one thing that you get brought in to do, right through to poor systems, poor ATSs, processes, and the list really does go on. So over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I really want to talk to you about my experiences that has been in volume recruitment. But I think it's really, really important to understand the foundation. And I think that sometimes if you miss that skip, or you skip that part, you really, really do lack what a successful recruitment function could be. So, show of hands, because it's the afternoon. I'm actually going to make you stand up instead of showing your hands. Could you please stand up if you're in a similar position to me where you're leading and driving volume recruitment, whether that's a manager, team leader, anything like that, please, could you stand up? Lovely. Okay, so about 50-50. So it's great for me to understand who I'm actually reaching out to throughout this session. So, okay, moving on. So I want you to try and recall a time where it's been your first day on the job and you're really excited, you've got butterflies in your stomach, you're a bit apprehensive, and you're walking into work probably a little bit like this. That's how I feel like I look. I don't think I look anything like that, but that's how potentially you could be feeling. You get to do your obligatory meet and greets, and you even get to meet your boss, who tells you all the challenges that she's desperate for you to do within your role, which can feel a little bit like overwhelming. Then you get to meet your team, and you walk up, and you're looking at them, and you're literally thinking, where the hell are the rest of them? Because you're thinking, I've just been told I've got to deliver this big figure, and is this all I've got? Yeah? So I'm glad to see some noddings, because it can be really, really tough. So for me, it's about breaking everything down and making things a little bit more simpler. And I call that the discovery phase. And that's really where I'll start to set a plan into place about how I'm going to tackle such a big challenge. So where does it all begin? It's listening. And I know you're thinking, of course it's listening. It's so easy, it's so simple. But not getting this step right can be really, really critical. So there's a couple of people actually I've noticed that used to be in my team as well, so no pressure. But actually what I've really learned probably over the last 5 years is taking the time out to listen to them is really, really crucial for your success as well as their own. And the reason why I say that is because I think we've all been guilty in the past, no doubt, of charging in like a bull in a china shop. My ideas are the best, you know, I know these work because I've done it before, I know things that can happen where we are now. But actually, not understanding what's happened to date before you arrived is really, really important. And you can get that off your team, you can get a lot of information. But it's also really important for them to feel that they're being valued and listened to. So the team where I'm at now, and I've been there for 2 years, were quite a broken team. They'd had several managers in before me, so there was no stability, there was no consistency, and they felt quite damaged in terms of how they'd been treated. So it was about really listening to them. It was about allowing them to share with me their successes and celebrate them, but also vent their frustration. And that was my starting point. So then I like to know what's happened, and this is where I start building things up. So I break things down into 4 core areas, and these are all foundations. So first off is figures. So it's really, really crucial to understand what's happened before you've arrived. And it's also equally as important to understand what's happened with your budget, how you've achieved it, and some of the targets, because that'll really help you then develop about where you're going to take the team next. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the recruitment funnel straight after this one. So next up is about processes. This is where you can really start to see the processes come to life. So how long does it take to do things? What's my metrics? What's my SLAs? Where's the clarity in roles and responsibilities? And who's doing what? Now, from these 2 first core areas, this is where you can really quickly start adding value and doing some quick wins. And I'm going to share with you about some of the quick wins I was able to do with my business. Next up is attraction. So, understanding what's performing for you and what's not is critical. Because when you're dealing with budgets, and in some cases when you're dealing with large volumes, you're dealing with large budgets as well. And things can really quickly get absorbed up if you don't understand what's working and what's not. And again, we'll touch about that a bit later on. And last up, about technology. So, of those who said before they were in a similar position to me, who's working with an ATS? Hands in the air. Right, okay, so keep your hands in the air for me, please. Of those who are working with an ATS, how many are happy with it? Well, I'm going to come see you guys after. So, not saying we're not, but it's really interesting. Pretty much most of you put your hands down. And it's a really, really tough environment when you've got an ATS, isn't it? Especially when you arrive in one that isn't working for you. So getting the ATS for me can either be a make or break for you. But I'm not going to touch too much on it, but my only advice on this would be perseverance. And over the 12 years, by God, I've really persevered to make sure that our ATS delivered exactly what I needed it to do. So one of the first actions that I would do was make my wish list. I would tell them exactly what I wanted. I'd invite them down on site, and I'd share with them about what I wanted to get out of the ATS. I'd also get them to share with me what their roadmap is, because I'm really interested about where they're taking me as well as their customer. And quite quickly, you start to format a decision about whether or not this is going to be a suitable match for you. But there's been so many times where if you're working in partnership with them, you can really start to turn around your systems. Because let's face it, they're not going to push things to you. It's about you getting the best out of them. And by doing that over the years, I've successfully been able to work in partnership with ATSs, roll out initiatives that have been from our own development, and actually that's been then helped with other organisations who've been clients of that ATSs. But actually what's been a really, really key thing for me is when there's been new developments and new releases, we've been first in line to actually receive that. So having a really positive working relationship with your ATS can really benefit you down the line. So a recruitment funnel, I think most of you heard of a recruitment funnel, waterfall. People call it all different things, don't they? But I like to keep things really simple and easy. So this is something that I modelled over the last 2 companies that I've worked in, and it's really helped me evolve the processes. So here's an example of one that I did for one of my organisations, okay? And I'm going to talk you through what this means and how you can get better value out of your processes as well. First up will be 2 clarity points, because these are your starting points. And for me, I can revisit this every 3 to 6 months. And they're really easy as well. So first off, what's been the conversion? So how many people applied to how many people actually started? Because then that starts to build a picture where you can actually keep on reviewing that. Then you've got time to hire. And in this instance, it was taking candidates 47 days from the moment they applied to when they actually started in the business. And I don't know about you, 47 days feels a hell of a long time for people in volume recruitment to be waiting for a role. Next up, so breaking this down for you. This is where someone's applied for a job and we're trying to make that first contact. we saw 30% of people dropping out at this first stage. You spend all that money and 30% straight away have dropped out your processes. So some of the things that we'd asked ourselves and reflect about why this was happening so we could challenge the status quo within all of what we did were things like, well, first touch point, how long was it taking to actually get to speak to a candidate? Were there any SLAs in place? Were there any metrics? Were they being met? Were we utilising the ATS efficiently enough? Were there any trigger points that helped us to then have alerts for when a new application came in? All food for thought that we then challenged back. Next status was, of those that we actually spoke to, how many then got successfully through to the next stage? And we saw that nearly half the people dropped out. It's a huge amount as well. And a lot of effort going into this. Again, reflecting back about why that might have happened, with things like, if you think about the previous status, people dropped out because we couldn't get through to them quick enough. This was a case where you were speaking to them and they'd already found alternative work because we hadn't spoke to them quick enough. It was also things like the content of the advert wasn't right. So when you spoke to them, they're like, oh, I thought I was getting this job and it meant this to me, and there was no connection. Next up, and this is really about the actual telephone stage of when you get to, the successful telephone stage. So that's great news. They've been able to be good quality on the phone and we want to book them in for an interview. And actually, what we found, changing the actual metrics of this for you, people were waiting 11 days for an interview. And again, anyone in big volume recruitment will realise that's just not good enough. So 11 days waiting is no good. So again, why was this happening? Well, we look back to see why. That was things like there was no interview availability. So why wasn't there any commitment? Who was chasing it? Where were the SLAs? All things that we kept on looking at. Now, to a bit more of a positive part of the process, which is the interview stage itself. This is great. Someone's passed. We've booked them in for an interview. But yet again, 61% of people were dropping out. That's a huge amount. A lot of effort's gone into that point, and 61% of people dropped out. So when we reflected on that and why that happened, we looked at everything. So that did include no-shows and unsuccessful people. Slip of the tongue. So yeah, we looked at that, and that did collate everything together. But why did people no-show? Well, if you wait in 11 days, who's going to stick around for that? Nobody. So when they did get to the interview and they weren't successful, what were the reasons that were driving that? Again, was there no correlation to what we just put them through on the telephone interview? Was the quality not right? There was loads of things that we explored within there. And then last of all, because this could go on, but just to cut it short for you, the pre-employment checks. This is the critical bit. You can see from here, 520 people in a month got offered a job, yet only 278 of them started. Nearly half of offers never converted. And anyone who does this job will know that is soul destroying. So again, we reflected. I've been really lucky in my roles. Everything that I've worked with in volume recruitment, I've actually had the two departments working under me. So I've been able to drive the front end as well as driving the back end for the onboarding processes as well. So within here, we reflect and we look back. What was happening? Why was it happening? So were the pre-employment checks too slow? Were our policies not up to date? Were there any SLAs in place for people to work towards? What was our capacity like? Did we not have enough people processing, therefore people lost out? All of these things that we were able to challenge and look at. So from there, we've now reviewed the funnel. We now want to really take some simple looks at our ATS workflow. Because from both of them, you're able to learn and start to paint a different picture. Now, we would wanted to make sure that the candidate experience is the heart of everything that we wanted to do, because I'm sure you'll all agree that speed, accuracy, and frequency speaking to candidates is really, really key. So you can see a really simple before and after, okay? The before, there was very loose, if any, metrics and SLAs in place at all. But on the after, We implemented new stages as well as clear roles and responsibilities. So everyone had clarity about what they were owning. We added a few more stages in the after, not to prolong it, but it was actually crucial that this would improve efficiency. So I talked to you about, once you've completed the first 2 core stages, this is where you can quickly start implementing some quick wins. And I'm hoping everything I've shown you so far are literally no or little costs at all. These are just simple steps covering to make sure that you've got your foundations in place. So these are just some of the things that I was able to do months within starting a new role that I was able to achieve back to the business. So new applications, we had an SLA in place that said we needed to be speaking to everyone in 24 hours. It's a really simple one, but not driving that and keeping on top of that, you can soon start to see why that 30% dropout started coming in. We then insisted that interview dates had to be arranged within 3 days. Remember I talked to you about that 11-day waiting list? That massively improved not only candidate experiences, but also our conversion rates. And then we've got interview availability. We then made it a 4-week schedule. So we actually went out and asked our hiring managers to commit to 4 weeks. And while we know that there will be some occasions where people have to cancel, we found it a far more efficient way of working, having that availability up front. And then what come with that was the hiring managers, it was their responsibility to make sure that they gave the outcome 24 hours after. Again, having a candidate waiting weeks on end just isn't great for your branding or for that candidate experience. Offer packs. I work in the care industry and have done for about 5 years now, and anybody who understands that, we're regulated by CQC, and it's a really, really tough space to be in, where you have to be 100% accurate about what you do and what you put in. So making sure the quality of our packs from the offset was key and essential. So we included a new stage within our ATS process that actually date stamped and covered whether you submitted a good bundle or a bad bundle. Now, again, working in recruitment and working with operations, there is sometimes an us and them. I don't know if you felt that before with where you work, and I don't think you can get away from it. But by having this, we weren't there to point the finger back at operations to say, you've not done this, you've not done this. Actually, we opened it up as more of a support function. So where we saw a hiring manager consistently sending in poor packs, we were able to offer training and support back to them. But at least we had quality MI to back that up as to why it was happening. And onboarding improvements. We reviewed our policies. It was a real quick win for us. When I arrived, I don't think the policies had been reviewed for about 5-7 years. So again, it was really, really quick wins for us. And then also we introduced SLAs, as I've said to you. It gave absolute clarity to everybody who had touch points within the recruitment process. So I'm on to the third core section of what I showed you before, and this is about attraction. So this is really, really simple, and you'll see a theme throughout, simple, because it can be simple, right? You don't need fancy graphs, you don't need fancy tables. This is just a really simple chart that shows you about what your cost per hire is. And again, tracking this every single month will make you invest in the right boards or the right avenues, the right attraction strategies that you're going to need for yourself. And it leads on to return of investment. This is a snapshot of January this year for us. So we're now hitting about 420 hires a month. And this is where we had our quick wins from. So again, for me, I've been able to track it all in my year 1, so that I could forecast what the budgets were going to be in year 2. And now I'm using sensible avenues that's getting me the best return of what I can deliver on. And last of all, everybody's aware of this one, recommend a friend. Now, when I started where I was, it was a bit of a prehistoric tale. Nobody really believed it, liked it, did it, nothing, okay? But very quickly, in March 18, we just rewrote the rules. That's all we did. We didn't do anything fancy, we didn't do anything complex, we just rewrote them. We used the same fee as well, but we broke it down into 2 payments, so it actually brought into labour turnover as well and retention. That's all we did. But the comms we sent out, we just kept it alive every single month so everybody was aware of it. And as you can see, the trends, just by doing that and nothing fancy, massively increased that kind of avenue for us. And this year, really excited, because I've got the buy-in from the business, I put a business case in together to then start having social referral as well, online via our Broadbean software. And we've had that secured in for this year. So I know that's only going to take that avenue even further again for us. Now, I don't think anybody says it better than Del Boy himself. This time next year, we're going to be a millionaire. But unfortunately for us, we're not going to be millionaires. But we can use that as a vision. And I've used this statement for the last couple of years with my team as well. This time next year. Having a vision for your team is absolutely crucial, not only to you, but for them. Because they feel like they're working towards something. And I'm really delighted that on the 22nd of May this month, I'm going to be working with my team in delivering what we've had our successes over the last 12 months. And we've got loads to celebrate, but they all knew what they were working towards. So I talked to you about the 4 core areas. Now I'm talking real basic changes, but they have massive successes in what you do. And these are just some of the things we've done. This isn't the big strategy, the big investment. These are simple, basic changes that you can make. And these are just some of the results that we've had. Now, I have to say, probably my biggest success that I'm really, really happy was with the Christmas fancy dress competition we did with Voyage last year. Now, Voyage, just to let you know an end on this one for you, they do a fancy dress every Christmas, and we invite some of the people we support into our offices. And it's a fantastic day. They come down and they do the judging for us. And what was really important for me on this year is that when I started, as I said to you early on, I had a bit of a broken team. Really disconnected, really disengaged, and pretty much felt like they didn't belong anywhere. So we've grown, we've developed, and we've worked on that together. And I was so really amazed to see every single person in my team get involved in this. So we decided that our Christmas theme would have been a Christmas turkey dinner with pudding. Now, they volunteered me as the turkey prize, which happily I participated. But this has just shown that some of the principles that I've just talked to you about has helped harmonise and bring the whole team together. So, with that in mind, thank you for listening. I hope you've taken at least some of this where you're going to put this back into your processes and your business as well.